give me a second. I'm just checking my feed. See if anybody's following me. Good. No, nobody's following me. I'm safe. So, global cafe or global biker bar. Where are we with social media? What does it mean when everybody around the world can reach out to each other and have a connection or have a disruption? What we want to talk about is where are we and how did we get where we are? I mean, we're at a point where I can go onto Twitter and I can insult almost anybody in the world. At least 3 billion people are on some form of social media, and I can reach out to them and try to make them a bad day. Or I can post something on Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram, and 1 million people can come on and insult me. You know, we've developed this technology with which we can beat and berate and degrade each other, and yet it's such a brilliant technology. It's such a blessing that I can connect with people in India or China or Italy or Starkville or Austin. So how did we get here? And what does it mean that we're at this point where it looks more disruptive and social than it is bringing us together? So we've got 3 great voices I'm going to bring here on the stage. The first is the head of director of communications from UPS, so giving us a global point of view, Peggy Gardner. Peggy? Second, from right upstairs here at NSPARC, the National Strategic Planning and Analytics Research Center, Laura McPhail. And third, and probably most important, a senior comms student here in the comms division, Kylie Tuttle from MSU. Kylie? Okay, we all mic'd up?
Mine says RF mute off.
So that's just speaking to it. All right.
There we go, I think I got it.
There you go.
I got it.
So I think this is a really important question, and maybe I'm overstating it, but you know, I've gone in and out with social media for a dozen years, and gotten excited, and then gotten bored, and then stopped everything. Where are we with social media, and what's really going on? Peggy?
Well, to use your words, I would say we are at a crossroads. There are a lot of people who are in the same place. Either they're ditching their social media accounts altogether, or they're finding new and different ways to use it. And I think for places where I work, like the big brands today, we're not walking away from it because people do want to communicate. And it is a way to communicate today that is a more, I think, efficient in many respects. But there comes so many challenges with it. So it's both what you can do with it and also what you have to look for. And you're right, the language of, so I'm a Southern girl, born and bred, and my mom was of the nature, she said, you know, I can almost forgive anything, but I can't forgive anybody for being rude. Yeah. And so that's where I come from, and yet the level of discourse or the lack of civility in social media is something today that only continues to get less and less civil, and it's a big challenge for a lot of brands because you have to, in time, get a little bit of a harder shell and, as we say, ignore the trolls because there's always somebody out there looking to pick a fight.
Right.
Well, I agree with you, Peggy, but I would also say that social media has also changed in how we're using it and the intent that we're using it for. You know, it started out as a place to go and, you know, talk to your friends or make new friends from some other place. And then, you know, businesses and nonprofits started picking up on that, and now they, you know, we removed that gatekeeper for talking to our clients and people who are interested in our brands. But now I see it as more of an information tool and a way to spread misinformation. And I think that misinformation is part of what leads to that lack of civility. It's because people are, talking about things that aren't really necessarily true or factual, but they are trigger points. They're very emotional, and so people react out of that emotion instead of actually trying to find the source and validate it and have a real conversation.
Like a bunch of drunks in a biker bar.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's not without hope.
Yeah. Kylie, from a student's point of view, what's it look like in your world?
I think it really depends.
Yep, you're good.
I think it can have a negative or a positive connotation depending on which generation you ask. And I think a lot of that has to come with whether there's rude people on social media or not, and just using your discretion on what you take literally and what you really take away from what you're reading and what your intake is and how often you're on it. But I really do think it's a really powerful growing tool, especially with businesses, because this is a way for businesses and individuals to connect. One of the things that I really love is like on Twitter, like for example, Wendy's will a lot of times respond to like an individual, and that really gives that personal connection through a brand whenever it's like they're talking directly to me and about my concerns. And then that also really shows that that company and brand cares about their consumers. And so I think it's a really great tool, but it can be used in negative ways if it's chosen to be that way. But I think it's all just how you perceive it.
So, to your point, as I was getting ready to do this and researching, I was looking for data on social media, and I found all these infographics, big things, a lot of rich data. It was all about businesses connecting with customers, nothing about people. It was all about how I can get you into my business circle. So talk about how that's working for a global company. How are you using social media?
There are a number of ways we use it. So we do connect with our customers, and there is a thing called customer care in a service business that happens really often in social media. So the first place, if someone has an issue with a delivery, they'll reach out to us via Facebook or Twitter and say, hey, I have a problem, help me fix it. So we have a whole team that is the same team that answers the emails, that answers the telephone, that does the customer care. So that's not actually part of my responsibility, but that's a core part of how we use social media. The other way, though, that I think we are maybe a little more advanced in leaning harder into social media is this idea of what I would call one-to-one communication. And it's back to how can we talk to those individuals as individuals. But the way we approach it is we talk about the thematics that we're interested in having a conversation with, and go find those folks who have the largest followers and fans in that topic, and reach out to them and engage with them in a conversation about the topic. So they're looking at our brand in a different way. So when we talk to them and reach out to them in Twitter and say, hey, we have this research that we're getting ready to publish on sustainability, we'd like for you to give us your thoughts on it. They're like, oh, wow. They're asking me how I think about this?
Yeah.
And there are tools now today that allow you to do that at scale. So while it's still one-to-one, you can actually scale it up pretty fast.
Right. So you're actually going after not just their eyes, but the eyes of 1,000 or 10,000 followers that they've got.
Exactly.
All right.
Because the way social media is changing, it used to be that brands were driving a lot of the conversations. But in reality, the way the algorithms work, if you're talking about it with your friends, it's going to get more visibility than if I try to talk to your friends as a brand.
Right.
So they are somewhat responding, although very, very slowly, to some of the bad actors, if you will, in this space, and trying to go back to the roots of where social media started, which is really this conversation and a way for people, irrespective of geographic boundaries, to connect with one another in a very authentic conversation.
Okay. Laura, you're in a different situation. You guys have got a consulting company upstairs, a think tank, basically. How are you using it, and how is it working, and what do you wish you could do?
It's a very interesting question that I've spent about a year on since I started working here. And InSpark is different. You call it a think tank, and it is, but it's also a research center that's part of the university.
Right.
So we, sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle, that people see InSpark, but not necessarily Mississippi State. And so part of my job is to make sure that that connection is there and visible, that people can see that we are part of the university, and we bring with us, you know, the brains of the whole university, not just the people who are working there. So I started out in nonprofit, which is very different than how I use social media now. And I was talking about information earlier, so what I've been doing with InSpark social media so far is trying to inform people and educate people about what data science is. It's a newer field than biology or chemistry. You know what someone does if you say I'm a chemist. But if you say I'm a data scientist, not so much. So I've been trying to do a lot of content curation because a lot of our projects are very long term to find, you know, to have the outcomes, to show those good stories. So curating content from other places to reinforce what data science is where we're at now. And I'd like to evolve that to a point where now we're showing some of those outcomes and doing more storytelling of our own than trying to get people on board with what the concept is.
When you talk about curating, give us an example of what you're doing there.
Okay, so there's several different organizations that are global that deal with data science. And so I try and find those credible, research-based organizations that are similar to ours. I like to follow them and see what they're saying. And if they are talking about something that might be a topic that's coming up at our data summit later in the year, or if it's related to one of our powerhouse areas that we work in, like human services or early childhood education, I like to bring that content and repost it on our page and add our own comment to it, like this is something that we're doing, or this is something that we, you know, should be looking towards, and getting people from that community to start also looking at InSpark.
Okay. Kylie, so as a student, tell me how you're using social, just as a student, how you're using social media and how your friends are using it. What's happening? What are the trends?
So like as a student in my personal life or
Yeah.
as a student in classes?
In both.
Okay, well, I'm the social media analyst for the public relations agency on campus called PRISM. And basically what I do there is I go through and I look at all the analytics to see when's the prime time to post, what time our followers are engaging most, and try to like cater what time we post and what days and things like that. So I do a lot of data on that side, and I do that with my personal a little bit more as well. Not a little bit more. I do that as well on my personal Instagram and Facebook and things like that. But
Just to make sure somebody's actually going to notice you.
well, just to make sure that I'm posting at the right times
Right.
to get maximum engagement and things like that. With my personal, it's a little less, I'm a little less focused on that because I do have more important things to do. Like for our agency, we work for Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa. We do a few other organizations on campus, so most of my focus is there. But in my personal life, I would just say creating like a personal brand is kind of important to kind of let people know who you are and like what you stand for. Another thing is trying to kind of create an aesthetic for yourself. So there's some consistency throughout all of your platforms. And I think that's important, especially whenever you go to look for jobs, to make sure your platforms are very recognizable to who you are across all platforms.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you mind? All right, so you have all of your own personal accounts. When you graduate and you're going to find a job, are you pointing to those potential employers, pointing them towards your actual personal accounts, or do you do like me and create a professional, page? That's where I want the potential employers to be going to and looking for what I can do versus the way I might interact with some of my friends.
I kind of do a blend of both. I usually have one account, and I try to represent my personal life and my brand image and whatever I want a company to think about me on that exact same platform, because I I'm a pretty genuine person, so there's not a lot that I have to hide. And I know a lot of employers are kind of scared whenever they're going through and they're hiring people from my generation, because people do have numerous accounts because they don't want certain employers to see that. And I would say that's kind of hard to gauge as an employer to tell. But I think it's good to have your personal interactions on there, as well as maybe sharing something about like this conference or something like that on the same platform to show that you're well-rounded, and I try to do that on my personal platforms.
So I just want to jump in here. There is this huge movement, and it's all somewhat driven by what companies have done with the workforce over time. So I work at UPS. When I leave 30 days from now and officially retire, and one of the last left with a defined benefit pension, and I am looking, I love it. So, but I bring that up only because that was one of the historical ways companies took care of employees, right? It was more of this cradle to grave sort of perspective. Over time, companies have changed many of their HR policies and the way we employ individuals. And we've moved to this gig economy, right? Where you are, in essence, a free agent in many respects, and you're going to go work at the job that provides you the best resume building exercise. And there's this whole new industry of people who are helping individuals with their personal brand, because people are very concerned about that. Right. So as this whole gig economy has changed and the younger folks are coming up as well, they're looking at social media very much in that personal brand perspective. What am I saying to the world in my accounts, and how am I going to use this social media to build my brand, which ultimately leads me to the next job and the next job and the next job. So, you know, for depending on what generation you are and what platform you're using, your needs are going to change, and how you use it are going to change a lot. But I think in many respects, social media is going to go right back up through the roof as we continue on this gig economy, and people are looking to understand who these folks are. And the best way to do that is just go out and Google it, and it's right there.
So let me ask you guys a question. I have been on, I was like in the first 500,000 people on LinkedIn. And so I've been there, no, I'm sorry, not on LinkedIn, yeah, on LinkedIn. So, but only for business, right? So it's like, this is my professional statement to the world. This is what I do. I do a lot of blogging on there, a lot of writing. I have a Twitter account that feeds from that, and which I never look. I would never go and look at if anybody sent me anything on Twitter. But I just started a Facebook account a few weeks ago because a friend said, why don't you post? He wanted me to look at his. And I said, why? I just don't. It's just, then I thought, you know what? It would be really cool to have a place where I could actually just put the stuff that's the art side of what I do, about my writing, or I had this thought and meditation, here's a quote from somebody. So I actually have a secret Facebook page that only 5 people can see right now. Because it really is more like a visual diary for me, and I'm willing to share it with that very small few friends. So I'm curious how each of you is personally using social media in your life.
Well, I have accounts on all of the major platforms.
Right.
And
I see you on LinkedIn all the time.
Yeah, and I also use Twitter, and it's a blend. It's very personal, so in my disclaimer, it's like this is thoughts and opinions are my own, not the brand, even though I serve as a spokesperson for the company, but
Sure.
They separate the two. So it really is platform dependent. And Mike and I also have this side hustle of a Airbnb account, which I manage those social media accounts as well.
Well, an Airbnb is sort of a big social media account anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it really, like you, LinkedIn is professional. Facebook is family only, so I have a very small group, and that's where I post pictures of the kids or whatever else that we're doing. And then Twitter is more of a blend of everything. It's also my news feed. You know, when I want to know what's going on, I go to Twitter. Yeah,
okay.
So news feed, I can look at anything around the world and figure out what's going on. So I go to that. And then Instagram is more about, I don't even use it at all personally. It's more our sort of Airbnb account, so the pretty pictures of the lake and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, cool. Laura, how about you? What's your profile?
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting when I compare in my head here to Peggy's use of it. I use Facebook a lot because I was one of, the first wave of Facebookers coming over from MySpace. Date myself. And I used to be in the Air Force, so I literally have friends that are around the world that I can still keep up with. I used to have all of my family as my connections there on Facebook, but we have very differing opinions, myself and some extended family members, politically, and that seems to be the fodder that comes through the most, and it's also some of the fodder that I emotionally react to sometimes.
Right.
So to preserve my family connections in actual physical life,
Yeah.
we do so much better with us being separated on Facebook.
Yeah, really.
Don't cross the line.
Don't cross the line.
Mom, they cross the line.
Right. But, my parents, my brother and his family, so we use that to, tell each other, silly jokes or stuff like that. LinkedIn is purely professional. It tries to kind of mimic my resume and what I can bring to the table, some of the interesting projects that I've worked on that you can't necessarily list on a resume. And then I have Instagram. It seems like Instagram I use mostly when I travel. If I'm taking some really interesting pictures or something that I think looks artistic, I'll try and put it up there. And then I used to blog. I'd like to get more into that, but I don't know, it's a little daunting putting your writing out there now because everybody's so scrutinized over what...
Right.
All right, so I read the other day that MySpace, had this loss of, everybody's passwords and everything. So that's still out there. I thought that I had shut down my MySpace account years ago. And when I Googled myself, maybe 2 years ago, I was like, oh my God, my MySpace is still up. What's going on?
Right, so everybody go Google Laura's MySpace account.
Which was mostly just, I like this band, I like that band. But, it's also my angsty 20s.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want all my angsty 20s stuff out there for everybody to read now.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know why I thought it was a great idea to put it out there in the first place. But nevertheless, I thought I had shut it down. And I have zero access to it because I can't remember the password. And they don't have it to give to me when I tried a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, I really want to take this down. They're like, well, how do we know you're the actual user?
Right.
So, yay, my angsty 20s are out there for anybody who wants to find them. So I have really evolved in how I use social media. It used to be very just, talking with friends. I try not to add many coworkers to my Facebook stuff. And when I taught some PR classes, I would not add any students until after they had graduated, or if they needed to get in touch with me, they could use Twitter or something like that. So.
Got it.
I would say for me, my social media, my personal social media isn't very limited. I'm kind of a firm believer that if you don't want anyone to know you're doing something, you probably shouldn't really be doing it in the first place. So I feel like that kind of goes with posting as well. So I like to display my life like publicly and not publicly and professionally, personally and professionally on the same platforms to kind of show like myself as a well-rounded individual.
You are wise beyond your years.
Well, thank you. But I add friends, family, coworkers.
What platforms are you using?
Pretty much everything. It depends on what it is. LinkedIn, I am a little more skeptical. If I haven't met you in person, I don't want to add you. I have found on LinkedIn there are a lot of old men that will want to connect with me that I have never met before, and we have no mutual connections. So,
Well, I can, from the other side, I recently had something from an independent entertainment professional who had nothing posted, and all the people who had come up on the right side that show that she are known by like her, they were also the same, and some were escorts. So it was a little. I did not.
Take the bait.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But yeah, I usually try to stick to, if I've met you before, it's all right. And especially like with my old coworkers, my old bosses, I love to keep up with them because I feel like they also post a lot about their personal and professional life and make it a great mix. And I think that's kind of beneficial to know someone on both levels because there's more of like a humanized connection there. It's not just your boss or someone you work with. They have a family, they have friends and things to do, and I just feel like it's easier to connect with people on that level, depending on what your relationship is with them, regardless, to know their personal life and for them to know yours as well. So I would say most of my social media is very open. If you search me, I like to be able to be recognized, so I don't have any kind of crazy profile pictures or anything like that. And I've found that to be pretty beneficial, especially with networking, with new friends and professors and professors, you know, after I've taken the class and everything, and potential employers as well.
So, Peggy, let me just ask you a question. What, you know, you're one of the, UPS is one of like 10 biggest companies in the world. It's gigantic. Yeah. But what are the trends that you see in global corporate social media?
Well, when social media first started, well, the pendulum's swinging back. Let me just cut it to that. And what we're seeing is this idea of really putting social back in social. And when it first started, it really was a way for individuals to connect with one another, to talk about like passions and shared ideas and thoughts, and connect. And then a lot of institutions got involved. They started, the big question way back when, if you remember, was how are you going to monetize these platforms? And for a long time, people were very critical of them, investors were, because there was no monetization of the platforms. Well, when that came in and this sort of overarching control came in and the monetization came through, then it became this very mercenary relationship, right? I'm looking for people in social media because I want to sell you something, I want to do something, and I'm going to get you to do something. So it became more of this commercial transaction as opposed to a conversation. Now the pendulum is swinging back, and a lot of brands are, again, refocusing on how can we have these true conversations with our fans and followers and the folks that we want to connect with. So the stories and the things that we're telling, organic media, at one point everybody's like, oh, it's dead. You know, if you don't pay to play, you're not going to get your stories told in social media. Instead now, if you really go back to, and this is why I think one of the reasons I'm excited about social media, because I started as a journalist. And if you tell a story in a way that connects with an individual, you can really get that story to the audiences that you're looking for. And so it's this idea of being smarter about connecting with those groups who are concerned or interested or following one story or another, but you can do it in a way as a brand that they find interesting and that they share with their friends and followers. So one of the things I brought with me today, if Nathan, if you can play that, is we have a huge airline, and one of the stories we want to get across is that we will go to almost any length to get packages delivered. And so it's like, wah, 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 if I just say that like that. But how can I tell that story in a way that's very interesting? So we put this video together. It's called Hot Spares. It's about these airplanes that sit on a tarmac ready to be dispatched. And when we got the video finished, we reached out to the aviation community. And we measured our success by the amplification of everybody we talked to in the aviation community. What did they do with this content? How far did it travel? Who shared it? Did their friends and fans share it? And we saw this tremendous success. So when you get a piece of content that gets 600% click-through, you know you've gotten a winner. And so that's, again, getting back to that idea of telling a story in a way and to the right audience and thinking about them very specifically. So going back to the old days, you know, when you looked at your audience and said, what is going to resonate with them? Let me tell them that story rather than the story I think they ought to hear. So
let's play that.
UPS Airlines Captain Kevin Littlejohn and First Officer David Parrish are going through the normal pre-flight routine on their Boeing 767.
From seat adjustment to radio knobs to making sure the flight instruments are set and ready, we do it all as if we're really going to go on a flight, testing the systems, and then letting the people inside know we are ready to go. This aircraft can fly.
But for right now, Littlejohn and Parrish aren't going anywhere. This airplane at UPS's main air hub in Louisville, Kentucky is a hot spare, a reserve aircraft that, if it's needed, can launch in 30 minutes or less.
Well, we have to make sure the aircraft is ready to go at any moment.
On any given night, UPS has 14 jets waiting at 7 airports across the United States, ready to rescue stranded packages. There are a lot of reasons it might be necessary to send a hot spare. Another aircraft might have a mechanical problem, or a pilot could be sick. With the airplane already pre-flighted, it's not too difficult to meet the 30-minute deadline, but only if everyone works together.
That means mechanics need to be here. That means the ramp personnel need to be here. That means the airplane needs to be completely pre-flighted and ready to go, which is what we're doing here now. It's just a overall team that is required to launch the airplane in that window.
That teamwork is on display when another hot spare crew get the call to fly to Columbia, South Carolina. In minutes, the crew is in a van and on their way to their aircraft, an MD-11. After some final checks in the cockpit, the 3 engines begin to turn. Flight 9226 leaves early, even by hot spare standards. It's on its way in just 23 minutes and later rescues more than 9,000 packages. Every year, UPS's hot spares recover more than 1 million packages that otherwise would not be delivered on time.
That's cool. That's really good. So what kind of response did you get?
So again, as I said, we reached out to the aviation community and said, hey, you know, we've got this piece of the story that we think you'd be interested in. And it worked on a number of ways because, A, we hire a lot of pilots. So we wanted them to think about us as a potential employer as well, and then share with all the other aviation enthusiasts in social media. And that's the beauty of social media, is it can travel really, really fast and really, really easily. So if you've got a nice piece like that and you get, you know, the rates that we did in terms of click-through rates of 600%, so that means not only did Dean share it, but then he shared it and his followers shared it.
Right.
That's when you know you've got something that works.
Cool. So Laura, at NSPARC, how much of what's the role of social in your mix of communications? How big is it? How much is it?
Honestly, right now, not as much as it should be.
Okay.
We have a very small communication department upstairs, and I have some brilliant student workers, one of which is out there in the audience right now. Greg helps with our social media, and he keeps telling me, we need more video, we need more video, and I 110% agree. But we also have a lot of some political considerations because we work with a lot of state organizations and agencies. And so it's not just as easy as picking up the camera, let's go and get this great story. You know? So it should be a whole lot more than what it is right now. It's me and Greg, and when I have the time, basically, because I've got so many other things. I would love it if we had a social media manager. I think that we're at a point now, when I started up in nonprofit work, you know, it wasn't unheard of. In fact, it was the norm to be a one-person shop.
Well, let me introduce you to Kylie, because she's going to be graduating here pretty soon. So
We need
check
a
her
position.
social media feed. I don't know if it's...
I hear it's pretty positive. But you know, I think that we're at a point now where the one-person shop for a place like NSPARC or anywhere on a university campus really just is, it's not feasible for the amount of social that we should be doing. We don't have as much engagement as I would like to have. It's been a lot of push messaging when I really, really want to be doing the pull messaging and getting people involved in a conversation. Let's discuss some of these big, big issues that we're researching about in, you know, society. We've got a bunch of sociologists upstairs.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really good content for conversation, but it's just not happening.
So when you're doing that, is that, in your mind, brand building, like saying, look, here's who we are, here's why you should think about us, or is it specifically reaching out to a specific group? Or how are you using it?
No, it's still a bit of brand building.
Yeah, okay.
NSPARC has only been its own standalone research center for about 10 years, and social has never risen to the top of the list of priorities, and that's where I'm trying to push it, you know, along with all the reports and everything that we spit out. I would like for the social to do more of what I was talking about before, that storytelling.
Yeah.
Because I'm a really really big proponent of storytelling to get your message across, and that's all I did in nonprofit, but it's a whole lot easier to reach those people because they have the heartstring pull, that they're emotionally invested in whatever cause it is that your nonprofit is working for. We do a lot with our data science that, in fact, our whole mission is to help human progress and to help improve people's individual qualities of life and society as a whole. And there's a lot of great stories that can come out of that, and that's where I want to get with our social media, is using it as a vehicle to very quickly just spread that message and get people talking about it.
Okay, cool. Kylie, so I want to ask you a little bit of a different question. When you pull out your phone in between doing things, where do you go? What do you look at? What attracts your attention? What are you interested in?
The first app I usually look at is Instagram. And specifically Instagram stories. I feel like stories are becoming really, really big, and we talked about this in one of my classes yesterday, in my retailing class.
Tell the audience what Instagram stories are.
Okay, so Instagram, there's like a feed where you have a post that will stay there until you delete it, or if you never delete it. But a story goes away in 24 hours. Instagram kind of piggybacked off of Snapchat, I think, whenever they came out with that. It's pretty new. And I feel like a lot of times people want to know what is happening in that moment. People are very in the moment, and they want to know, they want to be connected in that exact instance. So with a story, I feel like there's a lot more urge to check it because, it's not going to be there for more than 24 hours, and you can scroll through your feed later on and see things from a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And another thing that I've found in stories is ads will come up in the middle of them, and I am kind of a slave to advertisements because if I like an ad, I'll buy the product, and that's just how I am. That's probably just because I'm a girl. But I really enjoy looking through stories because it is so quick turnaround, and I feel like that there's this more sense of urgency there. And so I feel like that's a really good way, especially for brands, to go in because there is such high traffic on a story because of that reason. The ads popping up in the middle are definitely effective to me. I'm not sure about everyone else, but that's definitely the first thing I check.
I find this whole conversation very, very interesting, fascinating, thinking about the generational difference between how, social media was created while I was coming up, in my career. It's been around for a while, so I feel like you have the advantage of having learned from several of our previous mistakes. But I think it's really cool because I don't pay attention to the ads at all. I don't really look at the stories. I'm looking at the feed. So it's a good, insight into what the next set of PR and communicators are going to be doing with social media. And I think that it's also very interesting to think about. I have 3 nephews, 12, 9, and 6. And they're in this generation right now of hearing all the anti-bullying stuff, because that's what social media is used for in their circles. Well, in the 12-year-olds anyway.
Yeah.
And to me, I have hope for the way social media is going to go eventually once we get out of this very divisive political period.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, so that's a great place to go to our last question is, what's the future of social media? It's only been around for, 12 years? So going forward, say 5 years, what's it going to look like?
That's an interesting question because it's hard enough to know what it's going to look like 2 months from now.
Right.
It changes so fast in the way the platforms change, what they are going to do, and even the trust that people have in the platforms. So I don't know that I'm going to be the one to say with any credibility, right, of what it's going to be. But what I do think is driving it still is this human need to connect, and in a way that is not overly manicured, that is helpful, that can do good. So I am one of those optimists in that I have seen social media drive communities and empower them to make things happen, and it can be a force. And I do think that so many institutions suffer from a lack of trust, that the trust you have with someone you know is still going to be far more important to social media and the way we connect and learn from our colleagues and friends. So the more that the platforms can get back, have that pendulum swing back a bit, and really get to that again, I think that's where I'm hoping it will go.
That's really good. Laura?
Well, I think it comes back to the generational thing, right? People grow and mature a lot in 5 years. In 5 years, my oldest nephew will be 17, and he will be that next wave of users of social media. I can already see it because he plays Fortnite every time he gets a chance, right?
You know what Fortnite is? Fortnite's a multiplayer computer game that you can just walk in and it's a whole universe. There's a kid who makes $50,000 a month just playing the game, and other people come on just to watch him because he's so good at it.
He's under 10. I think he's like 7 or 8 or something like that.
No, the one I'm thinking of is a teenager, but still.
So there's more than one is what we're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah. But like I said, I have a sense of hope because when he's 17, he's going to have heard everything about all the bad stuff that social media has been used for. And he's going to be that next wave of user who's going to, I think, bring it back to that social connection that Peggy's been talking about, to bring it back to, let's concentrate on the things that, that we have in common and that we like and make, living a pleasant thing to do, rather than always trying to tear people down. Because that's the message he's hearing also as a result of social media is stop tearing each other down. It's not doing any good in this world to do that. So I'm hoping they'll take it to heart and they'll pick up social media where we left off and make it better.
I sort of have the feeling, Kylie, you're already there as the optimist in making the world better.
For the future of social media, I think it's definitely moving toward our new and primary form of entertainment, because I know my generation and generations younger than me, I don't remember the last time I watched live TV. I really don't. So I think that's why I love seeing the ads so much, because I do want to know what products are out there. I do love to shop. Everyone loves to shop. And we don't get commercials anymore, really, because we're watching Netflix, we're watching Hulu, or we're watching something pre-recorded. And my roommate
ad is a commercial.
Yeah, basically, it's like the new way of them integrating that. When I say them, I mean companies, corporations, salespeople. And actually, the future of technology happened like 2 days ago. Instagram just released this. It's like a trial period right now, but where you can click and shop through your feed. So a lot of times, if you follow a brand, you can like tap and it'll say this item is $55, this item is $70. But they actually just introduced this thing like 2 days ago where you can actually check out within the app. I know right now it's like in a trial stage where it's like just with certain brands like Dior and higher name female brands. But I also think, like what you were saying with gaming, I think it is moving a lot toward that. Like I did say, it is like our new form of entertainment. And I can definitely see not only like social platforms expanding in the future, but social devices expanding in the future. I can really foresee like virtual reality up and coming. I can see it even being implemented in like business practices, maybe for like teleconferences and things like that, because there's such like a need and entertainment for it.
It's actually how we train some of our drivers to go on road.
Oh, really? That's
already.
cool. See, yeah. But I definitely foresee it expanding on platforms as well as devices and shopping and everything. I feel like it's definitely moving more in that direction. It's a little bit less social than it used to be, but I think as long as people are pushing it and not keeping to themselves with social media, it'll remain like a nice balance.
Cool. So Peggy, Laura, Kylie, thanks very much. I think we've agreed that it's more on the side of the Global Cafe than the biker bar, so that's good news. Thank you. Oh, and hold on, I got to get you your, John's going to get them for you. Your bulldog bells.
I've always looked up to all of you people.
Yeah. That's hard, given how tall you are. Thank you.